Hey Falcons fans, we have some breaking news today, and it's not what anyone wanted to hear. I'm going to give you the lowdown on it. But before we dive into the details, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the latest updates. Trust me, you're going to want to stay in the loop as we prepare for the season. Now, let's get to it. Unfortunately, it happened during practice on Wednesday, and the worst-case scenario has just been confirmed. Falcons wide receiver Rondale Moore has suffered a season-ending knee injury. It happened during practice on Wednesday, and unfortunately, the worst-case scenario has been confirmed. After testing, it's clear that Moore will not be taking the field this season. The team has already placed him on injured reserve, which means his focus now shifts to recovery before hitting free agency next year. Moore joined us this offseason in a trade with the Arizona Cardinals. He was looking forward to a fresh start here in Atlanta, playing alongside Kirk Cousins and showing what he's really capable of. After 3 seasons in Arizona where he never really hit his stride, this was supposed to be his breakout year. He had the potential, he had the drive, and the Falcons had high hopes for what he could bring to our offense. But now, with this injury, everything changes. It's a big blow, not just for Moore, but for our entire offense. We were expecting him to contribute a lot, especially after the trade that brought him here. He was competing hard for that first-team spot, and now his season is over before it even started. So where do we go from here? We still have Drake London holding down the reins as our top receiver, and Darnell Mooney, who we brought in during free agency, will need to step up even more. Ray McLeod, who has been a hit in training camp, will also see an increased role in the offense. The pressure is on, but we know these guys are ready for the occasion. In response to Moore's injury, the Falcons signed undrafted rookie Ryan Sanborn. He's back to compete alongside Bradley Pinion. But let's be real, the biggest concern is how we'll adjust our offense without Moore. Will we bring in another receiver? That's something the team will have to decide as we get closer to final roster cuts. So, Falcons fans, what do you think? How do you feel about Moore's injury and its impact on our season? Are you confident in London, Mooney, and McLeod to carry the load? Okay, let's talk a little bit more about what went down in these joint practices. First, this was the first time our Falcons got to see some new faces on the other side of the ball this offseason, and the competition was fierce. Practices took place on Tuesday and Wednesday, leading up to our preseason opener this Friday at 7 p.m. in Miami Gardens. The trip to Miami wasn't exactly smooth sailing, thanks Tropical Storm Debbie. Our team arrived a little sluggish on Tuesday, but they quickly shook off the rust, and by the final hour of the first session, they looked like they belonged on the same field as the Dolphins, a team that won 11 games last season and made the playoffs the past 2 years. Let's get to the point, starting with the defense. One of the biggest takeaways from these practices was our pass rush, which has been a topic of concern for some time. But I have to say, the defense came out strong in Miami. Early in Tuesday's session, Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was doing his thing, connecting on 4 of his first 5 passes and even hitting Tyreek Hill for a 50-yard touchdown down the left sideline. But then something clicked for our defense. Jimmy Lake, our defensive coordinator, started turning up the heat with some creative pressure packages, focusing on safeties and corner blitzes. That strategy really started to pay off, as we saw multiple free rushers forcing Tua to get rid of the ball faster than he wanted. Cornerback Mike Hughes, who gave up that long touchdown to Hill, recovered with an interception later in the session thanks to pressure that forced Tua to throw before his receiver was ready. The starting defense finished Tuesday strong and carried that momentum into Wednesday. Tua was under constant pressure, with outside linebacker Arnold Ebiketie leading the charge. In the first 15 reps of 11 on 11, Ebiketie generated 3 pressures, and it was clear that the Dolphins' offense, without Jalen Waddle and with a limited Tyreek Hill, struggled to find a rhythm against our D. What's interesting here is how our defense has been utilizing simulated pressures over the summer. We're often lining up with 5 or 6 players on the line of scrimmage, but not all of them are running. Some are dropping back, some are attacking, and it's causing a lot of confusion for opposing quarterbacks. In Miami, these combined rush packages have given Tua and the Dolphins offense a lot of headaches. Our head coach Raheem Morris mentioned that he and Lake are constantly coming up with innovative pressure schemes, often during late-night brainstorming sessions. The goal is to create mismatches and force opposing running backs to block situations that leave fewer options in the passing game. However, there are still some questions about our pass rush, especially on the edge. Ebiketie will be a key player in determining how successful we are in this area. Simulated pressures can be effective, but if we have to consistently rush more than 4 players, it can put additional stress on our secondary, which opens the door for big plays from the opposition. So we may end up playing a high-risk, high-reward style of defense, but based on what we saw in Miami, there are definitely encouraging signs of progress. We're still figuring out exactly who we are in Jimmy Lake's system, but these first 2 practices were a solid step forward. Now, let's shift gears to the offense. Like the defense, our offense got off to a slow start on Tuesday. Kirk Cousins dropped his first 3 passes, there was a sack mixed in there, and Bijan Robinson had a couple of runs that went nowhere. We couldn't move the chains or the ball during that first 11-on-11 period, but then things started to click. Cousins settled in, and the offense started to resemble the efficient and effective unit we've seen all summer. By the end of day 1, Cousins was 15 of 22, and on day 2, he was even better, completing 12 of 15 passes. The offense's touch distribution was impressive. Robinson led all receivers with 8 receptions over the 2 days. Tight end Kyle Pitts added 5, Drake London had 4, and veteran wideout Kaderil Hodge had 3 catches. Our starting pass catchers, Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod, each had 2 catches, while Tyler Algier and Rondale Moore also saw action. Unfortunately, Moore had to leave Wednesday's practice on a stretcher after a non-contact lower body injury, which is definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on. Speaking of Robinson and Algier, they each had 7 touches out of the backfield on Wednesday. Algier found the end zone on a run down the right corner during a red zone period, while Robinson had a bit of a mixed day, with a fumble that we were lucky to recover. But overall, the offense showed a balanced approach, which has been a theme all summer. Another interesting aspect of our new offense under first-year offensive coordinator Zach Robinson is the emphasis on motion and shifting. This scheme is designed to manipulate key reads for defenders, and it was on full display in Miami. We're talking pre-snap movements that aren't just for show, they're setting up big plays. On Tuesday, Moore caught a swing pass after crossing the formation, and the next day, Josh Ali threw a reverse handoff after running behind the quarterback. Earlier in camp, we saw Mooney do something similar with Cousins. We're also exploring the quick screen game, with Cousins showing more consistency attacking the lower reaches of the field compared to Penix, who has a big arm and isn't afraid to take risks. The biggest test for Robinson, who is calling plays for the first team, will come on game day. But based on what we've seen so far, his offense is exactly what he promised, dynamic and unpredictable. Now, it's all about translating that into production on the field. Finally, let's talk about Michael Penix Jr. His final stat line from practice may not surprise you. He was 8 of 16 on Tuesday and 7 of 13 on Wednesday. But don't be fooled. Penix has impressed everyone with his arm talent, confidence, and field vision. He's really improved his read progressions lately, and we saw that in Miami. On one play, he broke his first read, felt the pressure, and struck tight end Ross Dwelly for a nice gain. Penix's efficiency has been up and down this summer, but every practice, he's made a handful of throws that remind us why we picked him number 8 overall. Now, he's gearing up for his first NFL game this Friday against the Dolphins, and we're all excited to see what he can do in a real game situation. So, Falcons fans, what do you think? Are you feeling good about the progress we've seen in Miami? Or are there areas that still concern you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. And before you go, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest Falcons news. Thanks for sticking with me today. And as always, go Falcons!